Hello and welcome to In a Spiritual Sense Kids, a podcast for parents, teachers, and caregivers seeking to support their children's emotional and energetic development. On the show, we'll blend insights from neuroscience, child psychology, and emotional awareness as we explore natural ways to help kids understand their own energy, stay grounded, and enhance creativity and imagination. Don't forget to check out our sister channel, In a Spiritual Sense, where we dive a little deeper into the metaphysical, working to build your intuition, connect with spirit guides, the paranormal, energetic healing, and more. Join me, Stacey Piagno, where we work to bridge the gap between science and spirit. Hello and welcome to the season finale of In a Spiritual Sense Kids. I'm your host, Stacey Piagno. Now, if you guys don't already know, I'm an intuitive. A studying intuitive, I should say. I do hear and see spirit very often. I teach dream work classes, I do tarot, and as of late, I've been into spirit art. I draw and paint spirits and auras. And I'm also a first grade teacher at a public school system, and I really don't talk about this stuff. That is, until I started a podcast. Well, I wanted to make today a special episode to close us out for the season. An all-encompassing conversation about kids, intuition, and all the wisdom in between. You all know I have a sister channel, In a Spiritual Sense, where we dive into intuition itself and the relationship we carry with spirit. Well, today I wanted to share just how powerful the connection can be between spirit and child, and why the understanding of this is so beneficial, and how we can use it to learn and grow for ourselves. You know, many, if not most all cultures from all over the world, from all different backgrounds, talk about the connection between spirit and child. Children being so young have just come from the spirit world. They are pure, untainted. Their imagination is in bloom. They live in the present, and there is no judgment created from the ego of their minds. They move in flow. And this is how we receive from spirit. All these qualities that children carry. This is the state where if we could only learn to live, we would be so much more in balance. And as I've mentioned before, the term spirit is loosely used to represent that which guides us energetically. Angels, spirit guides, the higher self, those who have crossed, such as ancestors or family members, those who come from religious teachings, such as Jesus, the archangels, or perhaps just the spirit of life, whether it be nature, animals, the ebb and flow of the world around us, all the currents that push and pull us through our experiences. This to me is spirit. And because we're all part of spirit itself, I want to bridge the gap in the belief that it is something that exists outside of us. Because in truth, we are all spirit. And as we awaken to this idea, we can learn to lean into the spirit side of life to gain not only a greater understanding of life itself, but a greater sense of self, a more complete sense of self. And what I have found in my life is the closer my relationship with spirit, the more support I feel in my day-to-day, the more ease I feel in my life, the more direction I have, and the more inspiration and magic I experience. And so, my hope in sharing today's episode is that you yourself can either remember these experiences and connections you have with spirit, or perhaps start establishing a new relationship, one that fits your life and your perspective, so we can live in better health, feel more supported, and most exciting of all, recognize the magic in our lives. How is it that we can lean into our intuition? Lean into our ability to receive not only what we hear, see, and feel, but what we sense within, what we see within, what we hear within, from our hearts, from our dreams, from our intuition. Well, today I have just a few stories of how Spirit communicates with me and how children are so closely connected, and how perhaps we can learn to listen more like them. You know, when we have these coincidences, those strange stories that you just can't make sense of, this is direct communication from Spirit. It's the crossing of energetic wires that makes us stop in our paths and pay attention right at the exact moment when we needed it or when we asked for it. This is how Spirit gets our attention. This is how Spirit communicates. And kids are walking channels and messengers. You know, as a teacher, I'll just share my intuition is usually closed off at work. It can be a very chaotic environment, and I'm very much living in my mind during work hours. I'm in productive mode. I've got a plan that I have to execute every day. And so being receptive to Spirit is honestly not on my radar during this time. And as busy parents, I'm sure you are in the same boat. But this doesn't mean Spirit won't shine through. I remember when I was first awakening to the idea of spirituality, you can hear some of the stories on In a Spiritual Sense. I was having so many coincidences happen every day. Blatant. And I was asking for them, Spirit, help me connect with my guides. Show me who they are. Give me a sign. Or help me understand this situation. Show me my path. Things like this. And I remember in this window of my awakening, when I was fairly new to teaching, I met with a friend of mine who was very intuitive, both as a psychic and medium. And he told me that the kids I worked with would help me stay connected to Spirit. And as a sign to show me this, I would have a student bring me a penny. So be on the lookout for a penny this week, he told me. This would be my message from Spirit, showing me that I am connected and that the kids would help me with this and whatnot. And I am not kidding. That conversation happened on a Sunday, and Monday morning, my sweet little Sarah comes running in the door. Miss Piagno, Miss Piagno. She runs up to my desk and she puts her face right up to mine, smiles, and whispers, I brought you a present. And she places a penny right on my desk. This is the stuff you can't make up. And this is the magic that I want us to all remember and experience. When we ask Spirit to show up for us, it does. But we very often are the reason why we don't receive. Whether it be our belief, our mindset, our lack of presence. But Spirit is always here. We're always supported. And sometimes it just takes a little tweak of awareness or a shift to live as our children do. I mentioned a minute ago, many cultures and religions throughout the world talk about the closeness of Spirit and child and how children can act as a guide for us. In the Bible, Matthew 18:3, quote, "Unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." Another verse is, quote, "Let the child come to me, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." It's the state of children, matching the state of God, of Spirit, of love. It's their frequency. They are light. They are free. They are connected to the heart of spirit and disconnected from the mind of judgment. This is what is meant by, quote unquote, entering heaven, entering your bliss, right here in your present life on earth. Heaven is the state of our youth. This is where you will find bliss and balance and joy and love and all of these wonderful qualities. A traditional idea represented by many Hindu teachings is, quote, a child is closest to God because the mind has not yet learned separation, unquote. I love this one. It's only as we grow that we become more limited. This is the wisdom of innocence I often connect with, to see the world through the eyes of a child. It is, again, heavenly. We are spirit. We are God. And sometimes as we grow, we become more disconnected. So reconnecting ourselves through the eyes of a child is to connect with spirit. It is to connect with our most natural state. A famous teaching amongst Buddhist mindset comes from beginner's mind philosophy. Quote, in the beginner's mind, meaning children, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few, unquote. Children naturally live in this open, non-attached state, which is one of the main teachings of the Buddhist, to become unattached. It's all about the power of unattachment and how this empowers us. Well, again, we can learn this teaching through our children. A widely repeated teaching to indigenous North America is, quote, children come through the veil still remembering the spirit world, unquote. Another similar is, quote, listen to the child, for they have only just come from Creator, unquote. You know, it's interesting when you allow time for your child to speak and give their interpretations and their thoughts and their mindsets, to share their creativity. Sometimes we overthink and miss things that our children so wisely connect with. Again, they are fresh gifts straight from spirit, and they can teach us some of the most powerful and yet simple lessons. Lastly, in traditions related to West Africa, in the Yoruba region, children are very similarly viewed as recent arrivals from the realm of ancestors. A traditional idea expressed in their proverbs is, quote, a child has 1 foot in the world of the ancestors, unquote. Hence, another reason why they are such great messengers for us, without even knowing it. When spirit is trying to get our attention or give us messages, the energy of that message will take the path of least resistance. That's Energetics 101, the science behind the movement, which we're not getting into today. But children, they are connected, and they are, in many ways, a guide for us. A remembrance of the wisdom and relationship we have access to. And so, my point is that this concept is nothing new. Children are more able to hear and move with the natural flow of spirit. And if willing, we can learn from them to remember this for ourselves. Another really powerful story happened just this year. One of my students helped transfer a message to me from my spirit guides, highlighting the fact that children can act as messengers for us in times of need. I had been doing a lot of work with my spirit guides as of late, and I've got some deep stories for you on my other channel. If you want to hear more about how I developed and initiated a relationship with each of my guides, there's lots of good stories. But every so often, I like to check in and work on growing my awareness and my communication with them. Well, this one morning, I was listening to an audiobook about this topic, and the chapter I was listening to was all about connecting with your guides and asking them to show up in different ways. And so I openly proclaimed that I wished for my guides to show up in physical form. And I gave this prompt a little more direction because I do often see and talk to my guides. I have a strong relationship with them already developed, but it had been some time since I had opened the door, so to speak. And so this is just one of my favorite recent stories. But I asked for a guide to come to me and show themselves in physical form and help me understand which energy I am meant to work with right now. For this phase in my development, which energy should I lean into? And just to give a little more background, I have guides, for example, who represent different qualities and ways of being or thinking. One of my feminine guides often shows herself to me as an owl, amongst other things. She's also a grandmother. She comes to me in different color patterns. I won't get into it too deep here, but one of the main purposes I use her for is to help me with my dream travel, because I do a lot of dream work. Owls also are historically representative of the night world, communicating with spirit. They hold the wisdom of the cosmos, they hold the energy of the feminine, and so on. I also have a guide, for example, who often reveals himself to me as a hawk, and he is more daytime masculine energy. So I'm getting in deep with the mysticism of this story, but bringing it full circle. I ask my question for a guide to come to me and show themselves and so on, and I take off for work. I pull in the parking lot around 7:30. The sun is rising, and there she is. A huge, full barred owl, right in the middle of the road, just standing there. Right on the morning I asked for it. And she didn't move for at least 2 minutes. I literally drove up to her with my window down, turned my car around her, and stopped. My tire was within 2 feet of her body. And we just stared at each other for what seemed like an eternity. Oh my gosh, she had the biggest black eyes. It was really a magical moment. And I was over the moon, bursting with excitement. I mean, I could literally touch her through the window. She didn't even move. And then a minute later, she took off in the oak tree right by the road, which I proceeded to follow to in my car. And she was fluffed up and she stared at me for another minute. It was absolutely magical and intense. And she was sent to me on behalf of my guide. Mind you, I haven't yet mentioned I also have this same species of owl tattooed across my back. Because, as I've mentioned, she's a guide of mine. She comes to me in dreams, sometimes as the owl, sometimes in person, and I do work with her energy. So this was a very specific message. And this is the stuff that happens all the time. These are the stories that I want to share, more so on my other channel. There's tons. Because this is the magic that is running in the background at all times, waiting for us to notice, waiting for us to interact with. And so, just to drive the point home, because sometimes we have these magical moments, but we still don't believe them, try asking for validation. 2 days later, I had still been thinking about this, and granted, I had accepted the message, but it was still on my mind. I'm thinking about not only my guide, but my totem animal and how I love animals. And through this audiobook I had been listening to, the next chapter was talking about totem animals. And again, on this new day, I asked out loud before work for Spirit to show me my totem animal. Was it the owl I just saw the other day? Is that just a guide? Are they the same thing? I was really getting into the specificity of all of this because I do dream of different animals for different things and I have lots of questions, and so I was still asking about it. Well, that next morning in class, my little artist, we'll call him Sam, comes to me with a picture he had drawn. He had asked me the other day about making something for me, and I'm like, I don't know, just draw me whatever you think I'll like. Well, lo and behold, he opened his backpack and gifted me with, you guessed it, a beautiful sketching of an owl. I have it hung up in my office right now, and I'm looking at it. I mean, come on. You can't make this stuff up. Kids are so in tune. I can just see little Sam sitting there at home pondering, what can I draw Miss Piagno? At the same time, I'm sitting home asking Spirit to reveal messages to me. Here comes a little spark of inspiration to Sam. I'll draw her an owl. She'll love it, having no idea what it actually meant to me. And never in my life have I ever talked about this with my kids. They have no idea I like owls. There's no signs of it. And this boy doesn't really draw that many animals. I mean, he does always draw his favorite animal, but he's more of an illustrator. He draws lots of creative creatures, which is what I was expecting to receive from him. And it seemed almost out of character to have him draw in this style. But I just know, as a kid, he was really in tune with me. And he gave me exactly what I needed at this specific point in time. So I really wanted to share this because I think many of us are lacking the attunement and or the awareness of the power that simply asking and receiving can give us. And don't forget the receiving part. We have to allow ourselves to accept the gift when we get it. But whether it be asking for more communication, asking to develop a relationship, or just asking for guidance on situations happening in your world, guidance for your kids, guidance for your health, inspiration for a project, the next step in your life. Ask. Ask for Spirit to show up in ways that you will be able to receive, ways that you will understand. And when you receive it, digest it, accept it, because we're always supported. And life is much more magical than we sometimes give credit to. So to end, I have a little surprise. I've been reaching out to all of you because I wanted to hear your stories. So I do have a special guest that wants to share a few special stories between her children, and Spirit. You all know her from earlier in the season, episode 12, Emotional Regulation. Tasha Simon, welcome back to the show. Hey, Tasha, thanks for coming on today.
Hey, Stace. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so I'm excited because you've reached out and you have some really wonderful stories about you and your family and Spirit and how children can act as messengers and guides for us, whether they know it or not. I would love for you to share some of these with us today. One you were mentioning to me about grief and your children helping bridge that gap during a hard time for you. Can you share some of these experiences with us?
Yes. Okay. So in
Mhm.
2015, I had my son, and that first year of his birth, I was transitioning. My dad was actually really sick, and he was slowly transitioning out of this world, right? And so there are several different experiences with me traveling with my son, very present, and I was traveling from San Diego a lot to see him to see about him. When he transitioned, I was like at a loss, right? I didn't know what to do with myself. And so I experienced grief and it's such a depth that even when we moved here to Arizona, I was so lost in my grief that I didn't know how. One, I was a first time mom, brand new. My son was under 1 years old, and he was such a comfort to me. But there are so many things that I like. I'm like, why isn't he talking? What's going on? There's all these different things that are happening in the first 3 years of his life that I was like at a loss. And he helped me be present with spirit as I was grieving my dad. It's my first major loss in my life. And so fast forward to I had my daughter a couple, she was probably like maybe 1.5, 2 years old, when they start talking. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have any pictures of my dad up. We had just moved into a new house and I was pulling stuff out of my suitcases or boxes or whatever. And I pulled it out and she said, Papa.
Mm,
I was like, wait, what? Like I didn't talk about him as much because he had already been gone. One of the things that I struggled with being having her after his passing was I was really close to my dad. And I was like, oh, he never got to meet his granddaughter.
mm,
And like I was a daddy's girl. So like I wanted her to experience him in such a beautiful way. And
yeah.
so when she said that, Papa, she's 2, 3 years old, like really young. And I was at a loss, like, wait, what? Boohoo, crying. I'm like, what did you say? I was like, yeah, that is Papa. That's mommy's dad. And like, she would not know that. I hadn't had any pictures out. Like, most of my pictures were on Facebook. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? If I miss him, the histories would come up or whatever. And so, not that I was negating my dad, but it was just a painful place to see. Like, when I see his image, like, it was just really hard.
Hmm.
But to know that she knew him,
Yeah.
she recognized him and without even knowing him is wild. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, kids, I always think about, I like to mention that, they don't even know what they're doing or sensing. They're just so tuned in and they're so free and open and in flow. Kids
Yeah.
are able to receive. And that was one of my big points of this episode today is how can we be more like them to get in a state of receiving? And so I agree. I believe that, she is connected to your dad. And I think that that's great that they can carry that relationship. And so the point being of this is, was she helping you with your grief?
Yeah, yeah. So, well, that alone was a part of the process. And even before she got here, this is a brief
Mhm.
story, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's my connection with grief. When I was going to deliver her, I was distraught because it was the weekend that she was born the weekend that my dad was transitioned.
Oh, wow.
And so like 3 years later, right? Yeah. And so, or 2 years later. And so I was like, oh my God, my dad's not here. We moved to Arizona. I thought we were gonna have like we moved literally a month after we moved here, he died.
Hmm.
So like all this excitement to be here, hoping that he would live and like we would be able to he could experience his grandchildren and me just experience my dad. I was distraught. And so when I went to I had a planned C-section. I took the suitcase, didn't think about it, just packed my stuff, was there. I was telling my husband how distraught I was and like, man, I really wish my dad was here. I was like crying, pregnant, extra emotional too,
Yeah.
and scared. And then I looked down and it was my dad's suitcase. Like literally his name and his address, everything was on there. I didn't plan
Yes.
that. And so even from this is like my connection with spirit as well as my daughter's connection and my children. It just shows us that it's allowing for the gift of receiving. Like
Hmm.
in identifying in that moment, was that by chance? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe that was literally, I didn't look at that. I didn't know. I was just grabbing my stuff and
Yeah.
getting going. So that's just one example. And then for her to show up like a year or so, year and a half later, and to recognize my dad in a picture format, like it's wild to me.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And so she's, um, so my dad has officially it's been 10 years since he's been gone.
Hmm.
Right. So there's been a lot of healing on my part with my kids, whether like talking about him, sharing his stories, acknowledging when things have happened. And like they've just been really present. It's been a joy to share that with them. And then today, however, in preparation for our
In
session,
preparation for this interview.
like I was completely shocked. Let me just preface that. So I bought London a baby doll yesterday. It's her first like baby doll with like all the little gadgets and stuff that cries and all that stuff. And she told me this morning that her name is Laura. And immediately I was like, that's interesting because that is my husband's grandmother's name. Love her to pieces. She was amazing to
Hmm.
me. And she passed away last year. And so I took a mental note because we were out walking the trails and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I told her, I said, London, did you know that that was your great grandmother's name? And she's like, I didn't know that. And I was like, yeah, Daddy really loved his grandma. She was amazing. And you met her when you were really little. She lived in Chicago, right? So telling her these stories, and then I get home and I talk to my husband for a moment, and he's experiencing grief because we're here in Arizona, a lot of our families in Chicago. We don't, when someone passes and you're not physically present, the grief process is different, right?
Mhm.
And so like it comes in spurts, like, man, I really wanted to call my grandma, like that type of thing. And
Yeah.
she was a person that was just really celebrated. Everyone loved her. And so I shared with him that she told me that today. And like, what a gift in that moment to receive that today when he's already feeling grief, to share that with him
Mm.
that, that's also, is that by choice or by fluke? Or, she's simply being a channel. That what a gift she's
Mhm.
given us because it's her innocence,
Yes.
right? It reminded me, this is a brief story of when I was little. I didn't know that I had intuitive gifts, right? It's just, I remember when my dad was, I don't know, I was probably like 8 or 7 or 8 years old, all the way through like young adulthood. I was on him. I'm like, Dad, you need to stop smoking, blah, 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 blah.
Hmm.
It like, my stomach would curl. I'd be so worried about him. When he passed, I had no idea that he had COPD.
Hmm.
And he was diagnosed with that 20 years prior when I was little on him, reaming him about it.
Yes. Picking up on
Right.
it.
Intuitively. So like
Yeah.
just like I did that with when I was little, she's doing it subconsciously. Like it's just in her nature to do
Yeah.
that when we're sensitive to spirit. And there the veil is so much thinner when we're younger. There's no distortions, no worries of the world. And
Mhm.
so it's so important to just to listen to their voices.
Yes.
And so yeah, what a gift today. I'm like,
That is
you could not
amazing. Spirit knew
plan
we were
that.
going to come on here. They had another little
Yeah.
something for you to share.
I was
And
like,
then,
wow.
and you've mentioned too, PJ, your son, how he's nonverbal for the most part
Mhm.
these days, but he senses you and he gives you what you need at moments that you need. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so he does have certain words. Right, he's classified as nonverbal, but he has words and he can express himself, but like not in the way that you and I are communicating.
Mhm.
But he is so sensitive to spirit, and even when he was a little baby, I felt like there was moments where I'm sensitive to spirit too, where like I'm like something's going on. I think he's communicating with my when my dad was transitioning. I know I know for those who are listening who may be Christian and know me as a Christian from my back in the day, like it's they're like, wait, what? But like spirit is a living, right? So like
Yeah.
a spirit never dies. Energy does not die. Maybe we're not in this body, but like if God is a living being and we're made in God's image, then we can exist anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so I just want to preface that for
Yeah.
my
Thank
folks
you.
that know
Yeah.
me. And so when he was young and I'm watching him play and like staring off in the skies and like giggling,
Yeah.
I'm like, you're seeing something,
Yeah.
right? So I'm just observing and not and like I'm praying for him and doing all these things. Like I'm like also just aware. He helped me understand grief even deeper, right? Like
Mhm.
my dad's passing helped me like understand spirit in a deeper way. And
Yeah.
so watching him and like seeing his development, and then when I'd had moments of like distraught, like just life happening, whether
Hmm.
it's a losing, like transitioning from jobs or just emotional distraught with like my family, there's been times where he would come up to me and he'll just come lay on me. And for those who've experienced PJ, he's like a bundle of warmth. And I know not every autistic child is the same, where some do not want to be touched, but
Hmm.
he is very lovable, meaning he's like a security blanket. Like I love when he gives me hugs. It just
Yeah.
feels so good. I'm like, I hope I feel like the way you make me feel, I hope I make you feel that
Oh,
way.
I'm sure you do.
He's so sweet. And so yeah, it's like if I'm an emotional distraught, it's like he senses it and he'll come over. And that's not
Hmm.
his job to do that, but I also do that for him,
Hmm.
like to be sensitive and attuned to him and what his needs are. So it's kind of cool to observe.
Yeah, I love those stories. And I think that's the perfect example of how children are so in tune by living as they do and picking up on things that can help us in our life. And that's the whole point of
Mhm.
today is that living in this state as children live, we're living on a higher frequency, we're more healed, we're better versions of ourselves. We have support everywhere around us. And so I love
Mhm.
these stories and I love that you're able to
Yeah.
hop on and share them with us today.
I do have one more that I wanted to
Yes,
share to
please.
encourage the
Yes.
audience. So with London, she's verbal, right? And one if you are seeing this with your children and or they're talking about things that you don't really fully understand, like you just think it's their imagination,
Mm,
I want to encourage you to ask questions about it, be
yeah.
engaged with it. So London, since she was a little girl, she would always say, "I see bubbles, mommy." And I was like, "What do you mean bubbles? I don't know what she's talking about." Like, can you tell me about them? Show me what they look like. She loves to paint and draw and
Hmm.
color. Show me a picture of them. And so when she was probably like 2 or 3, she's been talking about it since then. She would describe it, and I say, "Okay, do you see bubbles around mommy?" She's like, "No, they're just around me, and they're there to protect me."
Mm.
And I was like, "Interesting. Okay, cool, cool, cool." So I just kind of let it go, and then every like couple, it still comes up to this day. She's 7 now, and
Yes.
so it came up a couple months ago, and I was like, "Well, London, what color are your bubbles?" And so she described it. She's like, "They're rainbow. They're like
Oh.
different colors." And I said, "Okay, well, can you see mommy's bubble?" And she's like, "Yeah, I can now." And she's like, "Yours
Mm.
are kind of like a violet or like a bluish color." And I
Uh-huh.
said, "Oh, really? So is it a lot of separate ones?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's like small." And like she's looking at my bubbles,
Oh
right?
my gosh.
And so I'm like, "Okay, cool. So how is mom's bubbles different than yours?"
Mm.
And then she's like, "Well, mine are really small and they move really fast." And then she's like, "Yours are bigger and they're moving slower." And so I was sitting with that because I know aura, right? I
Yes.
understand like energy. And so I'm putting words into what she's describing, but not necessarily to her. I'm
Hmm.
conceptualizing it.
Yeah.
And so I encourage her, I'm like, draw them for me. Can you draw me yours? And so she drew a picture of herself with all these like specks of bubbles around
Oh, so
her.
cool.
And then I asked her to draw mine, and she did the same. And Spirit was just showing me the difference of why hers are so small and like sporadic. They're rainbows because she's basically she's tapped into so many different like there's just a joy around her, right?
Hmm.
And it's almost as if her energy it moves very fast, much
Yeah.
faster than mine, and mine has been refined, right?
Yeah.
Like almost cultivated, and that's my job as her mom is to help her cultivate hers, and so
Mm.
that way she's grounded and stable. So that energy will shift based off of how we feel in the moment, right? And
Hmm.
how we develop over time. And
Yeah.
so to be able to do that with my daughter, like it's
That's
wild. Like
amazing.
we even went to Sedona or near Sedona last week, and I took her into like a crystal shop just to kind of play with it and see what she feels when she's touching them. And like, not, it's just understanding that everything is living, right?
Yeah.
So, what do we feel when we're touching these living things, right?
Mm.
And so I had her play with like a giant amethyst, and I said, "Now
Yeah.
take your hand and push it in and see if you could feel the energy between it." And I remember doing that as a kid, not understanding it. And
Hmm.
so being able to have her like introduce her to just the world and having her ask questions and also explaining that I don't know all the answers and asking her, "Well, what do you think?"
Yes.
Yeah. And then having her channel, because that's basically what it is God's giving
Hmm.
her the message, just similar to where he gave her the name Laura,
Yeah.
right? That
Uh-huh.
gifted us. So yeah, it was really
Oh,
cool.
that's amazing. And the most important thing of what you said, what I've learned over these years, ask your child questions. I think that's so impactful and so empowering because of everything that we're talking about. They are open, they are connected, and they can often give us wisdom that we have overlooked or that we have become disconnected with because we've lost that little innocence that they are still connected to. So these are
Even
such great stories. Yeah.
one of the things too is like when we're asking questions or like helping I when I think about my daughter, I want the best for her and for
Hmm.
my son. Like I want them to experience things that I may not have had as a kid, right? One of the things that came up recently is she's always said that she wants to be a singer, she wants to perform and like have her own YouTube channel. I'm like, girlfriend, we're gonna pause on a YouTube channel, but we're gonna give you we're gonna give you the
Yes.
outlets to be able to express yourself, right,
Good.
creatively.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had gifted her for Christmas voice lessons. And
Great.
so we have been doing voice lessons with her. And mind you, when I was little, my dad actually did that with me and my little girl group that we had back in the day.
Oh,
Like we
yes.
did studio time, but not really voice lessons. And I've sung for years from like, I don't know, third grade through college and like in choirs and stuff. And so like a lot of my friends would always tell me, like, Tosh, you sing and you're humming all the time. It's just so like you seem so joyful, right? When you're doing that, not knowing that I don't even realize I'm doing it half the time. Well, London does the same. And so I'm like, okay, cool, let's get you in voice lessons. My first time seeing her do it, like there was no fear. She was just in it and like so much joy happening. And her teacher is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there watching her and I'm feeling like my inner child. Like I'm looking at her because she looks a lot like me. I'm seeing almost like me in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
but like a healed version of me
Yeah.
because I wasn't that liberated,
Mm.
if that makes sense. Like to
Yeah.
be able to fully express myself. As a kid, I would sing and I'd be told to shut up. And you know what I mean? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, a lot of people in our era, potentially, I don't know, like
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
quiet. My brother would ream on me like, shut up, blah, 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 you know.
Yeah.
And as a sensitive kid, I actually started to believe them, like, well, maybe I can't sing, but I continued to do choir, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so seeing her do that, and I'm sitting observing her, and I hear God say or Spirit say, you should be doing this.
Mm.
And I'm like, what? I don't have time
Oh,
for this. Like,
yeah.
mind you, I have all these things happening in my world where there's job chaos that's happening, just trying to balance a family. Like when am I going to make time for this? And I was in a, unfortunately, a spiral of uncomfortability. Like, God,
Mm-hmm.
what are we doing here? A lot of my projects were on hold. It's just a very high stress environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept saying, God, where's my joy? Like, I need to get back to joy. But I was in a cycle. And
Yeah.
I'm sitting here doing this for my daughter, but unwilling to do it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I decided for my birthday month, I'm like, okay, I'm going to gift myself some lessons too. I hear you.
Yes.
I hear you. I hear you, Spirit. All right, I'm going to do it. And I had so much joy come in just vocalizing. I didn't realize I had stopped humming. A friend of mine just like, I don't hear you humming anymore.
Oh, no.
And that was a sign that I wasn't happy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm seeing my daughter like bouncing all over, like singing and dancing. I'm like, oh my God, I deserve that too. So what a
Mm.
gift by just being herself, she gifted me a visual of, well, how am I neglecting myself? 'Cause it's
Mm.
so easy as a mom, and I know I mentioned this in the previous episode, that it's easy to forget about yourself because you're serving everyone else, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
her gift to me was simply her being herself
Yeah.
and reminding me that I deserve that too. Like, go find some joy.
Mm.
So we sing together and in our practice. We're gonna have a showcase next month,
Ooh.
and I'm like, first of all, I haven't sang in forever, but I'm like, it's healing a trauma response that I had before. And
Mm.
I was talking to my coach about this, like seeing my daughter do this so freely. Don't care if she messes up, just lets it out. Whereas I have been so meticulous and not very kind in like my mental
Mm-hmm.
of how a sound will come out. But if you're in your head, your voice you will have cracks and like dissonance and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the coach was like, Tosh, rate yourself. What did you think? Like this happened yesterday. She's like, rate yourself. Where do you think you're at in the song? I'm like, 70%. And she's like, I'm like, but I think I have voice dysmorphia. I don't hear what you're hearing right now because I was so hard on myself.
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting here with my daughter listening to this, right?
Yeah.
And so what am I teaching her in that
Yes.
moment? But it's a win-win. Like it's a good thing because it's self-awareness for me. Because
Yeah.
my coach is like, girl, no, you're at like 85%. Like, no.
Mm-hmm.
And for her, I don't want her to have that critical
Yeah.
voice in her head because that's my voice. Where did that voice come from when I was little?
Mm.
Right?
Yeah, what a lesson. What a beautiful whole moment. So impactful. So many different ways. And
Hmm.
exactly why I wanted to have you on today, because this is what we do. We learn from our children and we think about, are we acting like that? Why can't we act like that? There's such a
Mhm.
wisdom that comes with that innocence. There's such a powerful thing when we ourselves can look through the eyes of a child. I love to say that. And so, what a beautiful moment. What a beautiful story between
Yeah.
you, all of these stories. But it's so, so beautiful.
Thank you, Stace. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
their kids. Our kids are so, when we can pause and acknowledge and be present in the moment, there's
Hmm.
so much that they can give to us. It's just with, especially in Western culture, we're moving, hustle, bustle, grinding.
Hmm.
It's the, like I mentioned, I was in that cycle. I had to pause and say, well, how do I shift this moment? And for the listeners, if you're in that moment, just know that it is possible. Think back to what it is that you as a kid desired.
Hmm.
And I had to think about that too for myself. Like, what did I love when I was little that I'm not doing anymore?
Yes. Yes.
Right. And then our kids are gifting that to us just
Hmm.
by merely being them. Instead of me bickering at her for doing something loud or whatever, like, let me just lean in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on, Tasha. And thanks for sharing your stories.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Well, there you have it. If you want to hear more stories like this, hop over to In a Spiritual Sense. There's tons, with all the science and philosophy that goes with it. And don't worry, I'll be back here for more as well. In the meantime, stay up to date with all my services and podcast episodes on social media. Join my new kids page. I created a new Instagram for In a Spiritual Sense Kids. So if you're solely into that content, I now have a profile dedicated to just that, kids. If you're interested in signing up for dream classes, tarot readings, and coming soon aura portraits, check out inaspiritualsense.com. I have all the information you need there. And until next time, let's focus on staying present and living a little more as our children do. There is such a magic to life that kids see that many of us have forgotten. And when we allow ourselves, we can re-enter that magic and use it to help guide us in life. If you enjoyed this episode and this season, I hope you use it to inspire those around you. And I'll see you next year on In a Spiritual Sense Kids. For those looking to connect further, please feel free to send emails to info@inaspiritualsense.com or hit me up on Instagram, where you can find weekly inspiration and updates. I look forward to connecting with you.